Beth, Mary, Carrie, Mark, Ryan. Welcome.
Hello.
Hope you're having a nice vacation, Carrie. I'm sorry you're working tonight.
Yes, no, it's okay. Totally okay.
Being
The
busy.
minutes are coming along slowly but surely, making little chunks of progress at night,
Okay,
trying to chug along.
all right. Okay, Robin is just coming in. Scott is not going to be with us tonight. Here's Beth again. We had Beth. We're getting Beth again. Robin.
Hey, is your volume up, Miriam? Because I can just barely hear you.
It is. Can you hear me now?
No, not really.
Let me see if I can figure out my Zoom.
Yeah, I'm looking at mine to see it. Do I have mine all the way up too?
Are other people having trouble hearing me?
I can.
This is Mark here. I can hear you.
Okay.
Maybe I need hearing aids. It's okay then.
Turning up my input. Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Yes.
Okay, I just don't want to shout.
Get too
Okay.
loud.
We got another minute to go.
This is Mark here. While we're waiting, have you guys tried a hybrid meeting yet?
No.
Okay. I tried the last couple weeks ago and it was kind of a disaster. And so I was wondering if anyone was successful with it yet.
At this point, we haven't discussed the idea of hybrid meetings. I think there's been a general preference for us to remain doing this virtually.
Fair enough.
Sometimes Zoom is challenging enough.
Yes.
So I'm seeing somebody named Carol who's on the meeting. Carol, could you identify yourself just for the minutes?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Could you just
Oh,
identify?
it's actually Steve Levanti. I've got a meeting in 2 weeks, but I just wanted to watch and see how this all goes.
Okay. Well, we hope we don't scare you off.
How do you spell your last name? I'm sorry.
Steve Avanti.
Avonti.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, my clock is saying 7. So should we call the meeting?
Yeah.
All right. So our first on our agenda is to open the public hearing for 56 North Laurel Drive, DEP file number 2860292. This is a project being proposed by Mr. and Mrs. Abdow for a home demolition and reconstruction on Lake Wyola. And who is here to talk to us tonight on that project?
This is Ryan Nelson from R. Levesque Associates, representing the applicants.
Hi, Ryan.
Hello, I'm going to attempt to share my screen.
Okay.
Everyone see this?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, great. So as Miriam stated, 56 North Laurel Drive, located on Lake Wyola. The road is located here. There's an existing house. There's a lot of lines going on, so just bear with me and I'll explain. There's an existing house located on the property. The applicants wish to demo that house and construct a new one. The work is located within the buffer zone to 2 different resource areas. We have the bank of Lake Wyola shown here, the median high water demarcation. And we also have some intermittent stream roadside drainage. The opposite side of North Laurel Drive goes underneath the culvert and then ultimately confluences with the lake here.
Could you point that out again, please, where the intermittent stream is?
Yep. On the opposite side, North Laurel Drive, you can see these bank flags. Let me zoom in.
Okay.
These darker lines, and you can see the actual bank flags that were surveyed. There's a culvert that goes underneath the road here.
I see.
And then to the lake.
And what is the distance between that intermittent stream? And I'm seeing Beth just joined us. Beth, did you get kicked out?
My sound wasn't working, so I had to actually reboot my computer to get the microphone to be heard. So here I am.
Okay, so we're on the NOI public hearing. I don't know if you were in for that part. We just opened the public hearing. Beth is on the commission, so I just wanted to bring her up to speed. And this is Mr. Nelson, who's from our Levesque Associates, who's presenting it. And he was just describing an intermittent stream that goes by the property. You want to point that out again?
Sure. Right here, these two sides of the bank of that small stream.
Okay. And what is the distance between the bank, the distance from the bank to the limit of work?
Mhm. So you can see the 50-foot buffer zone is this dark dashed line right here,
Mhm.
and that stems from the lake and the stream. So our silt fence or limit of work in the front yard runs along the property line. So probably 30 feet or so, 35 feet.
I know what I meant was to the left of the house where the intermittent
over here?
stream. Yes, what's that distance?
Yep, so there's an existing tree line, this squiggly line here, so that's the edge of the lawn where it turns into forest. So our limit of work is shown as SF line type, stands for silt fence. So the silt fence would stay within the lawn, no clearing of the forest on this side of the property. And the limit of work in this location is probably 40 feet away. Over here, maybe 45 feet, and then it gets closer as you head towards the lake, maybe 10 or 20 feet here.
From the bank of the stream or from the house?
From the lake would be the closest point right here.
Okay, that wasn't what I was asking. From the house or from the limit of work to the, I can't point, but you've got this intermittent stream that's going perpendicular to the road. So where it's going perpendicular to the road, what is the distance from there to the limit of work?
About 45 feet.
Okay. From left to right.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, 45 feet. Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead. You can continue.
Sure. So the existing house is a walkout basement. So the property does slope towards the lake. The new home would be a similar foundation style. It would still have a walkout basement. We have our proposed top of wall and basement floor elevation shown here. There will be a garage constructed. We're showing a proposed gravel driveway located here. There'd be some minor regrading, slight fill on these side slopes along the house on both sides. Very minimal. The property and the elevations actually jive together quite well. There's an existing stone retaining wall at the rear of the proposed house area. That is existing. There'll be no changes to that. And we're proposing to put the silt fence on the uphill side of that stone wall. So no work would be occurring below that wall. There's an existing septic system on the property, or a tank and a pump chamber located here. We plan to not alter those. The proposed house will have the same design flow. So they would just be coring a new invert into the house and reusing the same septic components. Aside from that, there's a couple trees that are very close to the foundation area that may or may not be removed depending on contractor and how much room they need to work and what the root balls are like. So we're showing them to be removed just to be conservative, but some of them may likely be able to be preserved. Those trees have a dark gray with an X through them. I think there's one here, there's an ash tree here, an oak and an oak here. But all the work is generally within the same lawn area. So we're not clearing any new forest areas for this project. Also should note, it was brought to our attention, there's an existing seasonal dock on the property. I don't believe a license or any sort of permit to my knowledge exists for that. So as part of this notice of intent, we'd also be asking to maintain or keep the existing seasonal dock. That way it's included as part of the order conditions, and then subsequently the applicant would file for a simplified Chapter 91 license.
Yeah, I spoke with DP about that today. They said that you do need a Chapter 91 license for it.
Okay, there's been some gray area I found. I'm not disputing it, I'm just letting the commission know. Some towns, a seasonal dock, if it's under 600 square feet, they permit it locally. I know Southwick does that in other towns, but vice versa, we've also have done state permits for something that should be a local seasonable dock. So either way, that's not a problem for us to do that.
Yeah, what they told, well, that's not been our practice to permit them that
Okay.
I'm aware of. And they said even if it's a removable dock, it still needs to have a 91 license, is what I was told. I'm just telling you what DP told me. So
Okay.
that may take it for what it is, but
Okay. Yep, so we'll be pursuing that as well as part of this
Okay.
project.
we'll just put some language in our order of conditions about that, I think.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the key points of the project. Happy to answer any specific questions that the commission might have.
Anybody have questions?
No?
Yeah, I'm wondering, how's it all going to be landscaped afterwards? And is the entire area that's within the limit of work and the silt fence going to be, I guess, sort of excavated and be dirt, or is some of it's still going to remain vegetated?
Okay, yep. So our limit of work is shown, obviously a little greater than what the actual excavation area is going to be, simply because they need room to work in order to, for dumpsters and to store materials and stockpile things. But in terms of earth disturbance, the house would be demoed, obviously, foundation ripped out. And then, so essentially just if you picture a box around this new house, that is what would be excavated. And then there would be some filling on the side slope, sloping down to the basement on both sides. I wish I could trace on here to show you, but the excavated or earth disturbed area is not going to be the entire limit of work.
And how's it going to be replanted, reseeded?
Yep, so once grades are achieved, loam would be applied and then it would be seeded. And on these steep areas, we have a note that erosion control blanketing is to be used on slopes 4 to 1 or greater.
So it's just going to be, I guess, replanted as lawn.
Correct, yes.
That's the plan.
Yep.
And when we were there was a very lovely flower garden sort of right above the retaining wall. Is that all coming out?
The lower retaining wall?
Yeah. I think that's where it was, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So we're really not disturbing. If you remember, there was that stone jog out or staircase in that retaining wall.
Yeah, I
and then
remember
there's an ash tree in line with that. We're really not going past beyond that. I don't have that garden shown on here. Maybe they have that other present. They can chime in on that, but
Okay.
if not, we're really only going maybe about 10 feet past the existing deck.
okay.
Hello, this is George. We don't plan on doing anything below where the stairs are. From the work is going to be uphill from where the stairs start, and we plan on leaving all the flowers and everything else as they are.
So
It
that,
was, it looked like it was very nicely landscaped and,
it's just kind of like almost like a berm there also for erosion that, it'll help.
it will.
Then
Yeah, our intention is to re-landscape it to look just as nice, if not nicer, to include the sidewalk, the side areas and in the street side of the house also.
And you had mentioned during the site visit that over on the right side of the house, you may need to put in you're going to remove a retaining wall that's just dry stone and you may rebuild it or relocate it.
That's going to be where the garage is going, and depending on what the grades turn out to be, we are definitely going to have something decorative or make that side look as nice as the rest of the place.
Okay. All right.
Looks
Any,
like Janice has a question.
yeah, Janice, go ahead.
Hi, yes, so I had a couple. First of all, from what I can tell from the sort of scaling it off visually, it looks like the entire lot is within the 100-foot buffer zone. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and then I can't tell on this plan, the original footprint of the house. So how much of an increase in developed land, impervious surface is there going to be over what was there before?
Sure. So here we have a table. Existing was approximately 1,850 square feet of impervious. And then proposed would be 2,395.
So about half as much again, something like that?
Let's see, 200, about 700 more or so, 750 square feet.
Okay,
Sorry, 500, sorry. 550 square feet.
okay. All right. It's usually helpful to show the old footprint as well as the new one, unless you can sort of sketch where it is. I see the back wall, but I don't see the rest of it.
Yeah, it was very busy. If I tried to overlay it, I can bring up an existing conditions plan that shows it. Just give me 1 second.
Thanks.
So this was existing.
Okay. And the deck area is now becoming part of the house, right? And there's a new deck that extends further, or is the deck still about the same limit?
The deck, so part of the house extends further, this jog out section,
Uh-huh,
and then it overlaps where the new deck is going to be as well. So
okay,
the new deck is a little closer.
all right, thank you.
Mhm.
I have a question, because I was going through a draft of the order of conditions. And because it's a buffer zone project, it asks for what the shortest distance between the limit of project disturbance and the wetland resource areas. And nothing was preloaded. So usually it comes up as preloaded by the application. So what are you estimating or calculating that distance to be?
So from the actual structure would be closest point is around here. It's about 26.5 feet. But in terms of limit of work, it would probably be at the top of the silt fence here, above the retaining wall. And if you give me 1 second, I can pull up that dimension for you. About 13 feet
13 feet, okay,
from
That's-
the existing top of existing retaining wall to the bank of the lake.
okay. So that's the number you want us to be using.
Yes.
And where are you going to be having, debris, dumpsters, spoils piles, stockpiles, the materials, et cetera, located?
I don't have an exact location, kind of depends on the contractor and how they want to tackle things and what equipment they're using, but my guess would be the dumpster would be located in the front yard so that it's accessible by a truck. And then a lot of the concrete and the foundation, everything would probably be loaded right into a truck or a dumpster.
Okay.
Where does the current roof drainage flow to right now?
I don't know if our surveyors picked up on that. George, do you know if there is any sort of, if they just discharge on grade, the downspouts, or if there's any sort of collection system or not.
Am I back on?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, they discharge onto the lawn on the side of the house, on either side.
Okay,
The roof is sloped towards the road. And from there, it goes off to the side of the house up high and then disperses onto the lawn and just pretty much gets absorbed by the lawn.
okay.
Okay, and the outfall that, the outfall that you're proposing, I mean, I'm just assuming you guys sized it appropriately for the size of the roof and,
Yeah, so this is a typical system for a single family home. We have our 6-inch PVC foundation drains around the footings. And then once those reach a main line collection point, it turns from a perforated pipe to a solid pipe. And then some point downstream on that solid pipe, we would tie in the roof downspouts. And then there would be a stone armored riprap flared end outlet located over here, off to the side of that wall.
okay.
Do you have, anybody have any concerns or questions about that outlet?
No.
Hope it works.
Okay, are we commissioners, do you feel like you have enough information?
Yes, I do.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, in that case, does somebody want to make a motion to close the public hearing? Oh, Penny, wait, Penny Jakes has her hand raised. Penny, did you have a question? I should have invited the public to comment also, so before
I
we close
do
the public hearing.
I do have a question about, it's a follow-up on what Janice brought up before. Since the footprint of the impervious surfaces increasing fairly significantly, is the applicant proposing some sort of compensation as far as planting or, I don't know what the commission is, how the commission is reviewing those kinds of things now, but it seems like it's within your jurisdiction to make sure there's added benefit to the site from the lost area of from the increased surface area or impervious surface area.
So I think the applicant, and I know it would be easiest to do supplemental plantings as opposed to an infiltration system, but I'm open to suggestions and whatever Mr. Abdow would feel comfortable with. I don't want to, not sure what his, aesthetics goal is here.
Yeah, it sounded like, although you were saying mostly lawn, when we were doing the site visit, we were talking about that garden that's the closest to the lake, and that's probably going to stay or be recreated. And that seemed to really create at least a sort of a barrier all along right on the top of that retaining wall. And it was a good, I don't know, 4-foot wide garden that I felt was had nice plantings in it. I would like to see that be back in that same location, because just in terms of drainage on the site, there is an increase in impervious area, and with all the new construction and everything, there may be some sheet flow that comes down the property to that area, and to have that there would be really helpful.
And
But they're planning on keeping it, though. There was no proposed change to it.
correct.
It's just not on the plan, so I was like, well, that's,
No,
Yeah,
we're definitely planning on keeping it. I mean, we just built it a couple years ago, and I mean, our intention is not to disturb it at all. And if it is disturbed, to put it back to its original, to what it is, if not more. I mean, we've been adding flowers every year.
Yeah, so maybe we just get that added to the plan so that that's on there. It was a little more accurate as to how it's going to get replanted afterwards.
Does the, I haven't seen the planting, although as I recall from when I was on the commission years ago, that retaining wall and the planting were part of a previous notice of intent a number of years ago. So I think the commission certainly wants to see that stay in place, but does it include shrubs as well as perennials?
No, it's strictly perennials.
It was
Right.
perennials. I look like mostly native plants from what I could
Mhm.
tell. I mean, I thought it was very nicely landscaped, and unlike some other properties we've looked at and recently, it looked very stable and didn't give me pause for concern about erosion, because there was some hardscaping and some terracing, as well as, the plantings.
Might you consider asking that some shrubs be replanted? Or planted in the area where trees, well, not where trees are being removed, but where the foundation drain outlet area is, just to give extra protection, because perennials are great, but shrubs absorb a lot more water than perennials do.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because I mean, I don't think that area was part of that garden.
Yeah, I'm certainly willing to consider that. It would mean, I think we would need to continue the public hearing so that we could have a revised site plan before we issue the order. So I guess, because it's hard for us to add conditions that aren't on the site plan. Janice?
I mean, would it be possible to specify, 5 or 6 shrubs to be planted at the outfall location or something along those lines?
I think you could, well, I'm not on the commission anymore, but you could require that the applicant submit a planting plan for approval before construction starts.
That sounds like, again, I kind of hate sort of having these lingering components that have to get approved later once we've already issued the permit. I kind of prefer to have kind of one and done if we can. But Janice, you've got your hand raised.
Yes, I was just wondering how you're going to handle the dock that isn't permitted, whether you're going to allow it for this season, but that's it, or are you allowed to do that through DEP or not? I mean, very few towns have a harbor master. That's the unusual situation, maybe in Eastern Mass along the coast, but not in Western Mass. So, I mean, it's pretty standard to need to do the Chapter 91. So how are you going to handle that and the conditions?
I don't know. Got any ideas? I have a draft and I have a question mark and it's highlighted because I wasn't sure what we should do.
I don't know.
I mean,
I thought a condition was that we were gonna apply for the permit. This is George.
I guess then that we would have to, it's hard because we're not the ones who enforce Chapter 91.
And I did talk to a couple engineers that do this a lot, and they did say that
Go ahead.
George, you were muted, I think.
we are still planning on getting the permit application and doing the permit.
I mean, I think we could just say, to get the permit, because that process, as we know, is not going to take, it's not a short process. It takes a while to get that accomplished.
What could we require them to give us documentation that they've submitted it?
Yes, if I may add to that, this happens a lot in Otis and Southwick and other lake towns we've dealt with. And the way they've approached it is they've put the application for Chapter 91 license as a post-construction requirement. So prior to getting a certificate of compliance, that's something that needs to be obtained.
I would think the commission would want something before then. That could be a couple of years, right?
It'd be the duration of the order of conditions, but Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah, I think that we don't want to lose track of it.
You can at least get the application in by the end of this year or something. I don't know. You guys have to figure out how to set up a deadline or
What if
schedule.
we
or
said
something.
the applicant shall provide documentation of having submitted a license application
Chapter 91, yeah.
within 90 days of the issuance of the order of conditions? That's reasonable?
I guess. What's the
Yeah, I think that's on the short side again.
120 days?
You're not dealing with us. I've been
No,
told.
but no, just of having submitted the
Yeah.
application.
No,
not
no, I understand, but that, yeah.
or
I think that-
before the start of the 2023 season, maybe.
Yeah,
Well-
because I think using the dock in another 30 days is going to be a moot point.
Right. Why don't we say within 120 days? That should give you plenty of time to do the paperwork.
Mhm.
Would that be? Okay. All right, so what do you think, commissioners, about this idea of having them submit a planting plan for approval at some later point?
I'm fine with it. I think basically we make a condition that they submit a revised plan set that shows, because this doesn't really show, I feel like, the landscaping in general on it. So yeah, I'm all right with closing the hearing and requiring that in the order of conditions.
Yeah, I am
I
too.
am too, because no, visiting the site, we saw what was there and I'm okay with that.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
okay. All right, so somebody want to make any more questions from the public? Any more comments? Yes, Mike,
Yes. Yes, this is Mike Becta. How are you?
hi.
Yes, I was just looking at the plan and you guys were talking about the water runoff and things. But looking at the contour grades they have created around what I'm going to call the north end of the house and the south end of the garage, those contours are not that sharp. So water will not move that quickly over that amount of distance. So a good lawn base should slow and stop that from happening. This plan has been put together with some pretty good detail from over the years that I've been involved in survey and other things. So
And are you
just
are you a representative for this project also?
no, I am just a neighbor,
Oh, okay,
and I'm just commenting on the quality of the work that's been provided.
yes, thank you.
So
Any more
The only-
comments?
the
Or,
only question I have, if I could ask George outside of, because I don't know where to ask this. George, are you there?
Yes.
George, is there going to be any blockage of the road for access for us? Or is you guys going to be pretty much self-contained?
Everything's gonna be self-contained. I mean, the way everything's, with the amount of land we have and everything else, the layout is, nothing's gonna change. Everything's gonna be just like it is.
Okay, that's what I thought, but thank you for confirming my my thought there. But I'd just like to say though that the engineers, in my opinion, did a pretty darn good job with this whole layout. So
thank you.
So I'll make a motion to close the hearing for 56 North Laurel Drive.
Okay, a second.
I second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
DeFont, I, Harrington,
Aye.
Wilson.
Hi.
Okay, so I'm going to put up the the draft order of conditions, and we can wordsmith this a little bit as best we can. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I'm scrolling to the top. So here I was, the findings of facts. We find the proposed project includes the following jurisdictional resource areas. So we approve the mean annual high water line of Lake Wyola as flagged in the field and delineated as MAH, well, flag 100 to 120 on the site plan entitled blah, blah, blah. The commission approves the delineation of the bank of Lake Wyola as flagged in the field and delineated as bank 100 through 110 and 200 through 209. The commission finds that a bordering vegetated wetland containing an intermittent stream that flows through a culvert and then through the property to the lake has an associated bank and 100-foot buffer zone. The bank is flagged and mapped, but the buffer zone is not mapped. The intermittent stream and associated bordering vegetated wetlands are a protected resource under the Wetlands Protection Act and our bylaw. Is that okay?
Yep.
And then the project area falls within the 100-foot buffer zones of the bank of Lake Wyola and the bordering vegetated wetland. The 100-foot buffer zones around the bank are a protected resource under the bylaw, and Lake Wyola is a priority habitat. The project includes demolition of a pre-existing single-family house and retaining wall, clearing and grubbing, excavation for foundation, site grading, construction of a new house, driveway, and site improvements, no change to septic, well, and bank of the lake. Some tree removals are proposed, total impervious surface areas are, and then I have those numbers. A portion of the subject parcel is located within special flood zone A1. This is from the narrative. I don't know if that means it qualifies as isolated land subject to flooding. We didn't really discuss that in the hearing, so I didn't put that in. Is that okay?
Yep.
Here I have the existing removable dock is currently not licensed by Chapter 91. The applicant shall provide documentation to the commission of having submitted a license application within 120 days of the issuance of this order. Is that okay?
Yep.
Work shall conform to the plan set. There's no practical alternative. They've rebutted the presumption of an adverse effect. Here's our little patter about landscaping. Okay, general conditions. A member of the commission, this is all boilerplate, the stuff that's not highlighted here. So none of this is kind of different from other commit. Do you want me to read these or should I just scroll down? Okay. Now here, I think we need to put under general conditions, the requirement for a planting plan. The applicant shall submit a planting plan to the commission for approval no later than, we have a date? What do you think? 120 days?
Sure.
100 days from the issuance of this order.
It seems like an awful long time.
Okay, good point.
Because mostly what you want is just to identify the gardens that already exist and maybe add just the shrubs over near the outlet.
Do we want to include here that we'd like to see native plants used?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Additional plantings, proposed plantings shall include only native shrubs and plants. Okay.
I think, and that we may want to just add no later than 60 days from the issuance of the order and prior to any work commencing at the site.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. That's good. All right. And then pre-construction, again, have a pre-construction site visit, erosion controls, no hay, soil stabilization, erosion matting, no clearing of vegetation occur prior to the approval of erosion controls at the pre-construction meeting. Construction phase conditions, stockpiling. The erosion control serve as a limit of all work. Instruction stockpiles will be in demarcated areas. Let me look at may only be stockpiled or collected in areas outside of the demarcated limit. No, that inside we want, right?
Mm,
That doesn't look right.
yeah.
Within the demarcated.
Do you
Right?
have do you have anything about the, covering the piles of dirt or something like that? If they have any, no, usually with
Yeah.
tarps or surrounding them. Is
Yep.
that something in here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you.
Limited tree removal is approved by this order. Removal of existing vegetation shall be kept to a minimum necessary. Actually, this is not, for the silt fence, minimum necessary for, I don't know. I don't know if this is necessary. Shall be kept to a minimum. It's not just erosion control, it's because of the, this is from a different, to the minimum necessary for the authorized work. How's that?
Okay.
Good.
Erosion controls remain in place. Seeding, again, conservation seed mix within 30 days of the issuance of this order. Give us documentation of the type of plants, grass seed to be used, only conservation mix. Photographs 12 months after to show us vegetation. And then perpetual conditions, no use of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and only use of slow release organic granular type fertilizers as a perpetual condition. No additional net loss of permeable surfaces permitted without written approval. And then a post-construction site visit.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to pull up the permit in EDP, and then we can review that, and hopefully I'm gonna try to screen share.
You need a motion to approve those conditions?
No, I think what we do is we'll go through the permit
Okay,
and we'll vote on the permit and the order of conditions, okay?
okay.
So now we're just loading up Form 5. Taking time. DP's portal is slow. Thank you. Oh, it wants to give me attachments. Let me just try to open it up again. Come on. Here we go. All right. So here's the project. Parcel lot is ZA 2456 and A31 is what it said on the site plan, which I think is correct. Here's the 2 pages of the site plan that we were relying on. And here was where we have 13 linear feet of buffer zone impact. Is that the correct number to put in? Penny, you have a question?
Well, I just have a suggestion for the wording for the condition about the revised planting scheme to be a
Yeah.
little more specific. And I don't have that condition in front of me, but I would say include something to the effect of the planting plan will include maintaining the existing herbaceous plants located upslope from the berm, as well as additional native shrubs near the outflow area.
Hmm.
Just so it's very clear.
Preserving, I like that, preserving the existing
Herbaceous plants located upslope from the berm
upslope from the bank, you mean?
or the bank. Well, it's where there's a berm
Retaining
there. isn't
wall. I'd
there?
say just upslope
From
of
the
the
wall,
retaining
the
wall.
existing wall,
Well,
and will include additional native shrubs near the drain outflow area. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, moving on, back to the permit. So there's no other change to bank or other resources areas, so move on. Does not subject to stormwater, special conditions attached. And it is under a bylaw, yes. And it is approved under the bylaw as well, and it requires 4 signatures. Let's do an error check. Okay. So, with those changes, do I have everyone's permission to sign for them digitally? Everybody say
Yes.
aye.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion to approve this order of conditions with the special conditions as edited?
I'll make a motion to approve the order of conditions as edited for 56 North Laurel Drive.
Is there a second?
I second.
David,
Aye.
DeFont, aye, Harrington,
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. To the applicants and Mr. Nelson, and we will get this permit out to you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, next on our agenda, we had a hearing scheduled for 7:30 for 86 Sand Hill Road. However, I learned today that the applicant did not send out the abutter notifications required, so we cannot open the public hearing. And we will need to reschedule, and they will have to repost the public hearing to another date to be determined. And are the applicants here right now? I see Hannah Kowalski.
Yes, hello, I am here.
Hi, and is any landowner here as well?
I'm here. This is Tom Colt.
Hi, Tom. Okay, were there any questions that we could answer for you about what you need to do going forward?
Yes, I just have 1 or 2 quick questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I was speaking with the DOT today about some of the questions that they had.
I mean, DEP.
Or sorry, the DEP. And I wanted to just check in. So we had a wetland surveyor come out and survey and flag the wetland area, but they did not survey and flag the 200-foot buffer zone. I need to go back and talk to them and ask them to, give us additional clarification on the survey they provided. But I wanted to check in with the commission to see if you wanted that flagged as well.
Yes, we need to be able to determine whether this project is in the riverfront area. There's a perennial stream that goes through the property.
Mhm.
And if it is in the 200-foot riverfront area, then there's an addition, you have to resubmit the notice of intent because it didn't indicate it was a riverfront area project. And there's the fee is different through the Wetlands Protection Act.
Right. Okay.
An additional fee amount. So the fee that you paid would not be correct, and the form needs to be filled out differently.
Gotcha. Yes, that's easy enough to fix. Go ahead, sorry.
The other feedback I had given you was that the site plan did not, and we've required this on other projects, which is why I'm asking. The project site plan did not show the erosion controls, where the spoils pile containment area would be, and the buffer zones, all kind of in one location, one site plan. So we couldn't see everything in relation to each other. And there should be some measurement of the distances from the project area to the wetland, including the trench.
Yeah, we haven't. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, we have an updated figure that we submitted as part of the DEP application, which has the buffer zones and the soil stockpile on it. It does not have the distances. That's part of what I need to go back to talk to our surveyor about. For the areas that are within the 200-foot buffer zone, I'm assuming you would want the distances from the mapped and surveyed wetlands because they're going to be within that that buffer? Or
Right.
would you also
Right.
like the distance?
Right, we need to know the distance from the resource area.
Mhm.
For the limit of work, just like we were just saying with the earlier project, we need to know the closest approximate distance
Gotcha.
work to the resource area. And I know you may have resubmitted something to DEP, but we did not get a digital copy. I don't know if you've sent a hard copy to our office, but you needed to give us also an updated digital file with anything. If you've resubmitted the
Mhm.
form 3, the notice of intent, you have to send it to us as well.
Yes, that's the plan. I mean, the part of the delay on our end, and I apologize for this because that is completely on my end, was we were trying to make sure we had everything packaged together to give you a complete, both the DEP form, the abutter letters, and certification that we sent them, and we just did not get the whole packet to you in time for this hearing. So
Okay.
when we resubmit, it will have the fee, the certified notice of intent, and the new forms. And
Do you want to loop back to me to get a new hearing date and time? Maybe, or do you want to decide that tonight?
I'm happy to loop back. I feel bad already taking up time from the commission's meeting to talk about this. I'm happy to email you or call you
Yeah,
later.
let's just connect and I'll look at our schedule. Our next meeting is on Thursday, August 25th.
Okay.
We have a couple of hearings already scheduled, so I'd have to look at what I haven't posted the meeting yet, so I'd have to tell you what time slots would work.
That would be great. And thank you again for continuing to work with us on this.
No problem. Okay, thank you. Thanks. All right, I think next there's some site visit issues that we need to address. And what I want to do first is I see that Mr. Huang is here and Mr. Cook from 35 Weatherwood Road. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome. So I want to just kind of update everybody on the situation. So we conducted a site visit last weekend and we asked Mr. Huang to get a wetlands delineation on the property because we saw that there were what appeared to be a wetland very close to the house. And he remarkably got a Ward Smith out the very next day and got it professionally delineated within 24 hours, which is amazing. So thank you for doing that.
No problem.
So in looking at it, the removal of this deck this is the building permit application for the removal of this deck, which is a 2nd-story deck and stairs, would ordinarily require a request for a determination of applicability. But my concern is that this is really a safety hazard. The deck is very deteriorated and it's not blocked off. And if somebody was unauthorized, got onto that deck, it could be very dangerous or could fall on them. And so it seems to me like an emergency certification would be the most appropriate thing because it would let him remove the deck immediately without having to wait for a public hearing, and which would be like at least August 25th. However, to do the emergency certification, we need to get an order from a public agency telling us it's a safety hazard. I don't think we can make that determination ourselves. And I have reached out to the building inspector and have not gotten any feedback. Have you been able to reach anybody?
I have not, unfortunately.
And I don't think the Board of Health would make that determination. I really think it would need the building inspector's program would need to say that it's a safety hazard. I mean, it's literally just hanging there. Janice, what do you think?
I think the Board of Health could, if they felt it was it's up to them. Board of Health in different towns have different approaches, but in the towns that I worked in, the Board of Health would do that sort of thing as well.
Okay.
So it's worth checking with them, and it might be faster than the building inspector. I don't know, but the building inspector is probably familiar with the site, so
okay,
either one should be able to do it.
So ordinarily, the way it works with an emergency certification is that I could sign the emergency certification and then it would be ratified by the commission at a later date. I do have a draft that I wrote up with some conditions because you can put conditions in an emergency certification. I don't know if you guys want to look at that. Oh, I don't know if I did where the draft is. Maybe it's not the right form. Is that something you want to do? How do you want to handle this?
I think
Yeah.
that's fine. Let's look at, yeah, let's see what your conditions look like.
Yeah, let me find it for, geez, where is it? 35, here it is. Okay, I'm opening it up. Let me screen share. Okay. So here it is. Applicants to perform work, Simon Wang. Did I spell your name right, Mr. Wang? Yes, I did, I guess. And Kevin Cook is the contractor. Public agency, I left it blank because we have to figure that out. Date of site visit, start date of when they could begin, could be out immediately. And then they say an end date, no later than 30 days. So I just put September 1st.
Sure.
Landowner is permitted to remove and dispose of a failing deck and stairs. And then down here, general conditions that are just part of the form. And then special conditions, erosion sock must be put in place before demolition, so serve as the limit of work. No hay may be used. Erosion controls shall remain in place until the project is complete and the site is stabilized. No removal of vegetation is approved. In-ground foundation for the deck is to remain in place. All debris piles and or dumpster must be contained by the erosion sock and removed from the site no later than 9/1. No dumping of debris is allowed in the protected resource areas, and the applicant should provide photographs confirming completion of work no later than September 6th. Any comments?
No, that looks good.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. So, I can't issue this unless I get an order from somebody, Mr. Wang, and I'd really like to be able to do that. I think we would all like to do that because we think that would be a better outcome than you're applying for an RDA. But if we can't get anybody to do that, then you would need to submit a request for a determination of applicability. And I gave you the paperwork for that, I believe. Do you want to reach out to the Board of Health yourself as well and see if perhaps they would be willing to respond to you and then let me know? As long as I can get an email from them, I'm happy to issue this.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I will call them as soon as I can tomorrow.
Okay. And I call the building inspector. Again, I've emailed them, I've called and left messages, so I don't know. They're probably very busy, or maybe it's getting lost in somebody's inbox or somebody's on vacation. I don't know.
Yeah, I
think the
also left
building
them.
Inspector would be first choice for something like that. They would come out immediately. It would be just a visual inspection that would determine that it is not usable at all and is a safety hazard.
Yeah. Okay. So keep me in touch, and if I can get that documentation, I'll issue it. Otherwise, we'll have to go to Plan B, which is less desirable, I think. It'll just take longer, and it's dangerous.
Yes, I appreciate it, and I'm on it.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you. All right, let's
Thank
move
you.
on. Next, our site visit was 29 Leverett Road, which is a property where they're building a garage. And there was a professional delineation that was provided to us that showed a bordering vegetated wetland. And I believe in the site visit, we measured that the distance from the limit of work to the edge of the wetland was maybe 30 feet or 35 feet, is my recollection. So my understanding is that the applicants are going to submit an RDA for that. Does everybody agree? Who was there? Any comments or discussion?
Nope.
No, I agree.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, good. The next thing I have on the agenda was 66 Lake Drive. Is Bob Douglas here? I see Bob D. Is that you? I don't know who Bob D is.
You're muted, Bob, if that's you.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm on the road right now. Let me just find a place to pull over, but I've been listening. Thanks very much for getting to me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, please don't talk to us while you're driving.
Okay, this looks like a likely spot. All right. Thank you very much for coming out to the 66 Lake. Some of you have been there multiple times, and I really appreciate going out there, and I appreciate your feedback now. I guess what I wanted to ask was, I filed with the Shutesbury Conservation Commission for a request for determination of applicability for the work and roughly 4 different things that I want to do on the property. And now I understand just conversationally that oftentimes projects of this nature, the commission asks for a notice of intent. So I just wanted to talk to you about that. If a determination is possible, or if there's anything that I can give you additionally that you would expect from a notice that's different from a determination. So again, I appreciate your time to counsel on this.
Well, because you've applied, and we have an application pending, we really can't deliberate outside of a public meeting about whether we would find this a positive determination. If it was a positive determination, then you'd be required to submit an NOI. So I'm a little hesitant to advise you specifically about your application because we can't do that. I mean, I don't know if we can advise in some general ways, except to say that by past practice, we have required NOIs of projects that were even less in scope, really,
Really?
than yours, I would say.
Okay.
So that would be all I could say about that.
I'm curious if and I know you're not really in a position to advise me, but just hypothetically, if I'd be better off filing a notice of intent, or if it's triggering a notice of intent because I'm doing the restoration of the water scoured yard, if I just cut that out of the determination, then the majority of the project would be outside the 100-foot mark. So anyway, that's kind of the dilemma that I'm in, and I kind of do realize that you may not be able to comment on it.
I don't feel like I can comment on it. Or should comment on it. I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything. I feel like that puts us in the position of deliberating.
Understood. So maybe I'll just go ahead with the determination for the next meeting that you can put me on, and I'll go ahead and send it off to abutters and the copy of the state. And when the determination of applicability had originally started as a permit, was kind of like, is the notice of intent apply in this case? So I guess this would be a classic yes or no type question, and then you can answer it in a public forum, and I guess we'll just go that way. I guess that would be my I guess that's the quickest way to go for me.
I guess I will say, Bob, just for the record, because I think this already has been said in an open meeting, is when we first wrote this letter to you about some restoration work on the site, which was like back in April, maybe, or May, I can't remember when we wrote to you. It was kind of in lieu of an enforcement action. And we were, I think, looking for a notice of intent at that time. I think we had discussed at a meeting that we were expecting it would end up being a notice of intent, but
and it was mentioned in the letter, a notice of intent. And honestly, I kind of looked through the guidance from MACC and the guidance from the state, and I thought that I was firmly in determination territory because it's not a major project. But I stand corrected, and guess I could withdraw the determination and apply as an NOI. But I'm wondering if is there any more information that's typically requested by this commission, other for a notice of intent that's unique as compared to a determination?
Well, I don't know that there'd be more information, but I think that a notice of intent allows us to impose some conditions and before a certificate of compliance is issued, which we don't really have that same kind of ability with a determination of applicability. Yes, we could put conditions in, but if we put so many conditions in that it's essentially becoming an order of conditions, then we really should be requiring a notice of intent. Like if it's a project that requires a lot of conditions that are going to require verification or, you know, post-construction inspections and then certificate of compliance, then really it becomes like a notice of intent, an order of conditions. So, you know, we've been advised by DP not to do that, not to put so many conditions into a determination of applicability that we're basically creating an OOC.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That helps. And I, you know, maybe I'll see you at the meeting related to the determination and or maybe I should just withdraw it. Yeah, I'm kind of in a quandary. I'll
Okay. All right, you think about it, get back to me and let me know what you want to do.
I appreciate your feedback. Thank you very much.
And you're reaching, I did, I just before you sign off, I did let LWA and LWAC know that you had submitted this RDA. And I know that there are some people here representing those groups. So you're going to be notifying them yourself in order to, because they're going to have to make some decision about what they're going to do with that drain. Because it's
That's
on.
right. And they are direct abutter because they own the roadways and they will be notified as part of the conservation process.
Okay.
Their butters, which
Okay.
include the town of.
All right. So that will be something hopefully we'll figure out in a public hearing.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye for now.
Okay. Let's move on. We do not have minutes ready to review for tonight, so we're going to table that item. I also had on the agenda talking about forest cutting plans, and I'd like to table that because there were some that came in that I need to scan and I haven't been able to do that. So I think we could table it to the next meeting. Other items that we need to knock off the agenda is talking about the complaints about lot 032 and the concerns about work done without a permit. So I know some of the people who have written to the commission are here tonight. And I also see that there we have one member of the select board here. So thank you, Melissa, for being here as well. And what I'd like to do is sort of summarize kind of where we're at right now and what I've learned. And then, you know, invite the commission to decide, you know, what kind of actions we want to make. And if there are members of the public that want to make any comments, I certainly will give you an opportunity to say something. I did have a couple of conversations with Mary Grover from DEP about this matter. And I guess what I want to say on behalf of the commission is that our primary interests here are, of course, protecting the interests and values of the Wetlands Protection Act and the town wetland bylaw, and protecting water quality and quantity and wildlife habitat. And we also want to support town projects and work collaboratively with the town. And we want to be constructive. And I think it sort of is in everybody's best interest for us to be looking forward for ways to be constructive and productive. And also just be mindful of what our particular jurisdiction is. There may be concerns that people have about this property that really aren't relevant for our jurisdiction. And so I think we're going to have to defer to other places where those concerns could be aired. We can't address things that are outside of our jurisdiction. Since our last meeting, there was an email exchange where I was able to obtain and distribute to the commission a 2018 wetlands delineation that was produced by Ward Smith from Wendell Wetland Services. And that was a new report that I had never seen. I don't think any of us had seen it. It certainly was not made available to us when we were considering the request for determination of applicability last summer for the property. So we were unaware at the time that there was a current wetland delineation showing a BVW. We knew and we had determined that the project area was within the buffer zone of the BVW based on our site visit, but we didn't know that it had also been professionally delineated. And at that time, last summer, that delineation was only about 2.5 years old, so it was still current. Now it's out of date, but it was current as of last year. It was still under 3 years. So that's what that is. And ultimately, it wasn't our responsibility to do that delineation. The town, in applying for an RDA, has the burden of proof to demonstrate that they're meeting the performance standards in the act. So it's not our responsibility, it's really the applicant's responsibility to show that their project is not affecting wetlands. And then this year, there were complaints filed with the commission from some residents who expressed concerns about loam having been brought in last summer to the area where the garage had been demolished. And also more recently, there was emails to the commission about the wet meadow BVW area being mowed recently, sometime in late July. And we don't know a lot of details about when that mowing was done or why. The concerns in the emails were that it was a drought period, a period of significant drought. And I don't know, I think we were in significant drought at that point. I think we're in severe drought now, but so the concern had been that the mowing was done at a time when the plants were already, and that habitat was already stressed. After talking with DP, I think, one important thing for us to keep in mind is that, the town wants to go forward and do a wetlands delineation, which is a good thing. And I think that benefits everybody, and we're glad they're going to do that. And that there's also been approved a scope of work for a tier classification investigation of the property, which will hopefully resolve a lot of concerns and allow for the issues with DP to get resolved. And that's not our jurisdiction. So I'm just saying that I'm glad that those things are going forward. But I think we need to decide where our jurisdiction is and what activities need to be regulated with an RDA at least, and which don't, including perhaps activities, for example, involving the tier classification, because those kind of classifications, if they're in a buffer zone, might not require an RDA or an NOI, but if they were actually in a resource area, I believe that they might require a wetlands permit. Do you guys, Janice or Beth, do you have some thoughts about that?
Yeah, if it's in the buffer zone, some investigation work in terms of drilling, doing borings or test pits is exempt if it's going to be part of a future application to the Conservation Commission. However, I think that changes a little bit if you're actually doing that kind of work within a wetland itself, within a resource area itself.
Yeah, that was what Mary Grover said when I spoke to her today. She said that if it was if it's in a resource area, then it's not a minor exempt activity under the Wetlands Protection Act, and it does require a permit.
Right.
So that's where the wetland delineation becomes really critical, because we don't know where the boundaries are yet, and we don't know exactly where the proposed work would be, so we can't offer any guidance right now without more information. And so my thought that I want to propose to the commission, because I would like to get this resolved, and I think that this is a very uncomfortable position for me personally to be in, and I imagine for the rest of the commission, because we're a part of town government. We want to work collaboratively with the town, and we want to support projects that the town and the residents of the town have voted to support. I mean, I think that we all share that desire to be collaborative and positive and to move forward. And yet we're presented with information that was concerning at the last meeting, that there had been fill brought in as defined by the Wetlands Protection Act, to fill being defined as a material added to a protected resource area without a permit. So I would like to propose, and this is not an easy thing for me to say, that we issue a very limited, and I hesitate to say it, but friendly enforcement order. That's not going to be onerous for the town. It's not going to cost the town more money or interfere with the town's projects, but would pave the way for a process for future deliberations that will be clear and responsive to the concerns. I don't think the town is served, or the wetlands are served for, I don't think we should be requiring a restoration of that area that isn't serving the interests of the wetlands to excavate further there. I don't think that makes sense. But I think that having some sort of clear statement about process seems in order. So toward that end, I have drafted a possible enforcement order to share with the commission. I have not shared it with the commission yet. So this is the first time I've raised this issue, and maybe we could have some discussion about it.
Okay.
First, let me hear from the commissioners, like what your thoughts are. And I really would like to encourage you each to share what you're thinking.
I would like to see what the enforcement order says, and I'm, really surprised and sort of upset about them, mowing during the drought. I mean, is it just let's try to make it hard to identify any wetland plants or whatever? But yeah, the things that have gone on they concern me. So I would like to see the enforcement order.
Yeah, I think so too, just almost just like you were saying, for process, and how to include all these details that we want and have discussed. You have to have it in some kind of a process. And I would think in the enforcement, one thing we'd be asking for is the delineation, which they're planning to do anyway.
Right.
So like you said, no extra cost necessarily. And once that delineation comes, then we get a better idea of some of these activities that have taken place, exactly how close they were even to the resource area, because we don't even, we're not quite clear as to where the fill was placed and the mowing was done. How close is it to a resource area? Is it right in a resource? The delineation needs to be done. So I would think the enforcement would have the requirement for the delineation, and then, I mean, we'll see what you said, but maybe almost saying, based on the results of that delineation, talk further with the commission about any future mowing of certain, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I have some language in there about that.
Yeah.
Mary, did you want to add any comments?
Yeah, I do think we need to set up a process. There's just so many people that are involved in all these different plans that it's hard to coordinate all of that if you don't have a process for doing that. So
yeah. Yeah, we did get, just so you know, we got, and I think I forwarded it to everybody. I hope I did. We got an email later today. And if I didn't forward it, did I forward you guys the email from this? Oh, no, you guys were all CC'd on it. I'm sorry. So there was an email that was sent to us and all the conservation commissioners were CC'd on it from, I think it was from Rita Farrell, asking us to postpone reviewing this for a joint select board meeting. And they gave us a couple of dates to also meet with town council. And I would welcome an opportunity to do that and have a conversation. I think that it could be very constructive. And I certainly am glad that we got that response. However, a meeting that's joint with the select board is not a meeting that we have convened for a regulatory purpose. And I'm not sure that we can make regulatory determinations at a joint meeting that we are not chairing. So I think it's valuable and I want us to do that. I don't know that it's a substitute for us making our own determinations based on what's before us. A complaint has been filed. We need to make a decision about that complaint. We either find it has some evidence to support it and we issue an order or a decision, or we find it's without merits and we don't act on it. But I think that that's a regulatory decision that we have to make in our own right as a board, and that has to be independent of our collegial relationship with the select board as our appointing authority. We're in a kind of a complicated relationship because here the select board is our appointing authority, and they're also representing the landowner, which is the town of Shutesbury, as an applicant. So that's complicated, and it's trying to keep these lanes clear is the challenge for us. So I will show the draft, but is there any comments anybody who's here would like to make? And I certainly would like to invite Melissa, if you would like to make a comment, you're welcome to, or I see Penny Jakes has her hand, but Melissa, are you prepared to comment, or did you have any questions for us?
I don't have any questions. I was just peeking in for tonight's meeting to watch your process here and thinking about, the select board meeting with you, if that's something we do, to have as much information to help that conversation. I do want to say I appreciate the kindness and listening that everyone's doing tonight too. I just want to.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you need me to chime in, I will, but I appreciate you having the meeting and discussing this. It's not easy to discuss this stuff. So I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Penny, did you have some comment?
Two quick comments. One has to do with mowing the wet meadow. Just for context, the commission has an agreement with another landowner in town that the only time they can mow their wet meadow is when it's dry. And so.
Who is that?
Jeff Lacey. Bakerfield.
Well, we also have an agreement now, or an order with Kestrel Land Trust, that they can only mow their wet meadow when the ground's frozen.
Yeah, well, that's tough. As someone who mows a field, that's tough, but okay. So that's just a perspective on that. The other thing I would say is I would encourage you to meet with the select board and then consider submitting an enforcement order rather than doing them in the reverse order, if that's what the commission decides to do. I think having a broad discussion about process, which you can't really condition in an enforcement order, is a better way to start than starting with an enforcement order. That's all. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thanks, Penny. Okay, is there anybody else from the public that wants to comment? I know Michael Hootstein's here. Michael, you were one of the people who's written to the commission. Mary Lou Conca's here. She had written, and I don't know if anybody else who had written to the commission is here. Was there any comments you wanted to make?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I know this is very difficult for the commission, but I've heard you all talk about due process. And due process, the 14th Amendment has the due process clause, and the other clause, part of the 14th Amendment, is equal protection. So it's very important that the town administrator or the town is treated equally as a Lake Wyola resident who comes before you. And as you know, it's very difficult for folks who find themselves wanting to do a project and realize understanding what the law requires of them. So I do think I think it's important for you to issue the order tonight, because if you had any abutter or any landowner come through and speak to this board like the town administrator did at the meeting on July 28th. I mean, what I see here is you guys are the enforcers of the Wetlands Protection Act and our local wetlands protection bylaw. It's not the select board and it's not the town administrator. So I think an even-handed, just to let the town administrator and the select board know that this is your jurisdiction. You're legally authorized to make decisions on these laws. So I'm very appreciative of this board, and at a time when our country is going to hell in a handbasket and government is so dysfunctional, this board, thank you so much for what you're doing, because as a guy who's committed to protecting drinking water and human health, the wetlands are our living filter for our drinking water. And it's very important that we enforce our local laws. So thank you.
Thank you. Amanda, I see you have your hand raised, and then I think after that, I'm going to show the draft of the enforcement order so the commission can look at it. But why don't you go ahead, Amanda?
Hi, thank you. Miriam, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. It's my husband's computer. As one of the persons who complained about the lot 032 mowing, I just want to point out that just kind of as an observer, I'm no expert. My main complaint was the mowing seemed to occur so close to the wetlands delineation, which I thought was not a good thing in general and specifically, because it seems to me it could change the outcome, besides the fact it was done during a drought condition, which, you know, seems silly to me. I since then have gotten the 2018 report as well, and I noticed it was very, very focused and also done in the fall. It was done in a drier period in November, and the only study that seemed to really show a lot of wetland sort of activity on lot 032 was the one done by the Conway School, which was done in the spring, which seems to me the time to do it. And the town could have done this in the spring. So it just seems to me sort of deliberate. That was the basis for my complaint.
Okay.
On behalf of the remediation groups.
All right. Well, thank you. And just so the commission knows, I did email, and this is again back to due process issues. I did email Becky Torres today after these concerns were raised and asked her questions to give us some information about the mowing and the history behind the mowing. And she hasn't gotten back to me. So while I have put some language in here about the mowing, I feel that we don't have enough information to make that really the crux of our findings. I think this is a matter that is a particular matter that needs to be investigated. We need to hear back from town about when they mowed or why they're mowing or how they're making those decisions. And so I just want to give people that context, that I think we should really frame this very narrowly on the things that we know for sure. And try to avoid conjecture and just make this as fact-based as we can. That's kind of my hope. So I'm going to show I'm going to show the forms, and then we can go through them. So there's two forms. There's the actual enforcement order, and then there's the attachment. So let me find it. I just shared it. Can people see it? Nope, I don't know where it went. Help.
I see the top of it.
Okay, here we go. You guys see it?
Yes.
Okay, so this, the location is 66 Levitt Road, which is 032. And what I did here was just summarize as factually as I could what the chronology is. That the property was subject to a DOA, an RDA that was filed last year. And the goal of that was the demolition of the garage, which was partially in a buffer zone. And that there was a wetland delineation available to the town, but which was not available to the commission. And the reason why I think that that's important is in case there's any question about whether or not that RDA was valid and whether they're actually the work being done was in a buffer zone, I think it's just important to just acknowledge that the town had available to it professional delineation. So it had good reason to understand where the boundaries of the wetlands were. And then we have the complaint that was filed by Mr. Hootstein on June 7th, where he alleged that there was unpermitted work involved in the area of the garage, and then another site to the south of the garage where debris had reportedly been excavated. Then on June 12th, we did a site visit where we saw evidence of filling and grading where the garage had been demolished.
Right.
We observed the fill. And again, fill is meant as a material added, not meaning it's dry fill or clean fill that people refer to in construction. That's not the way that fill is used here in this context. And that an area was observed to the south of the garage area where there was some evidence of recent work having been done, but we really weren't able to evaluate it beyond that something had been done. And then at the meeting in July, our last meeting, we were informed by the town administrator that had been a site where loam had been brought in to stabilize it sometime in 2021 after the determination had been issued. And that's when she informed us that there had been a more recent delineation done on the property. And then on August 2nd, Mr. Hootstein filed a supplement to his complaint, which he shared this Conway feasibility study. And I'm kind of conflicted about this language about the conflict of interest because I'm not sure that that's relevant here, and I'm kind of inclined to take that out because I feel like that's really neither here nor there for us. That's I think the point here is to stay talking about the wetlands. And then, so I'm taking that out. And then we were provided a copy of that, which identified a wet meadow, which was delineated as a BVW. And then on August 8th, we received communications, it's today the 11th, so it was 3 days ago, from Amanda Alix indicating that she had visited the site on August 6th and observed it had recently been mowed and was concerned that the mowing had taken place in a delineated wetland during a drought. So then I just have the area subject to these activities the area was found to be protected to be a protected resource area by the SCC in its issuance of the determination. The applicant had the burden of proof to demonstrate in its determination that the proposed activities would not adversely affect the resource areas. And also noting here that the bylaw treats the 100-foot buffer zone as a protected resource area. Filling with loam in the 100-foot buffer zone of a BVW without authorization constitutes unpermitted work. Is that word okay, unpermitted?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mowing, then here I have mowing a bordering vegetated wetland during a area of significant drought without authorization may constitute an alteration. The SCC reserves judgment on this complaint pending further investigation. And then given that, what?
I was just going to say, the fact that it's significant drought, I don't even know if we need to put that in there. I think you're just saying mowing of BVW without any kind of a permit,
Okay,
because it doesn't
Okay.
really matter if it's drought or not drought.
point. That's a good point. Given that the site had previously been delineated as a protected resource area within 3 years, the applicant should reasonably have understood that the observed work was in a protected resource area and should have obtained authorization for the work. Any comments about that?
I think that covers everything.
Yeah.
And under findings, Penny, do you want to have a comment? Penny? Hello?
I'm here. Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. I apologize in advance. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I'm less aware of this than most people, but the fill that was brought in was only put in the highly altered area where the garage was removed.
Yes.
That's what the.
As far as we
issue
know.
is?
We don't know where else, but that's what we know was filled.
Okay. Because that seems fairly trivial to me in the scheme of things, but I understand filling a wetland is a bad thing, but filling in a hole where a building was removed seems like a different category of problem in my mind.
Okay.
So I was just trying to clarify exactly what was filled.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. The activity is being conducted in an area for the buffer zone without approval. And then down here, checked off on findings, it had been under subject to this DOA. And to say the observed work activities were not included in the request and were not approved in the DOA. And I just want to say that while I agree in principle that with some of what you're saying, Penny, the point was that we might have approved this if it had been included in the RDA, but it wasn't included. And we would have liked the applicant to come back to us if they decided to do additional work or felt that they needed to do additional work. It's really about the process. And if there's a permit being issued and somebody needs to do additional work, we'll certainly consider that and maybe modify our determination or approve additional work. But that's what really was, it's again, a process issue. And that's why, again, we're not gonna, I don't think we're gonna go in and require the town to dig out the fill and do something else with it or leave a ditch instead. That's not what I think would be constructive for the wetlands or for the town. So then the property owners, the property owner shall immediately cease and desist from any activity affecting the buffer zone and resource areas. And then under order, this is where I get a little confused. We're not asking them to file an NOI. And then I think no further work until a public hearing has been held. I don't know, do I check this? The owner shall take the following action and then see attachment. Is that the right way to do this?
Yeah, I think so. Is there any other choice after that? I can't remember.
No.
Yeah, so I think that's what you do.
Okay. Right, and then we'd be signing the four of us. So let me give you the other attachment. Stop screen share. Penny, you had your hand raised. Did you have a comment?
No, I just think I hit that by mistake. Sorry.
Okay. All right. I think this is the right document. Okay. Can you see? I can't see it.
Just the top.
The top.
What?
Just the top of it.
Okay, you're seeing more than I'm seeing. Let me see if I can find it. Hang on, let me reduce. I'm confused. Where is it? I've got too many things open is what's going on here. Hang on. Okay, here we go. Thank you. Okay. So I'm just going to read it and let's talk it through. And this doesn't look right to me. Oh, Oh, I think this is not the right draft. Hold on one sec. Can you hold on a second? I think actually I had another version of this that was better. Just give me one sec. How was I labeling this? EO attachment. That's annoying. Sorry, I have two versions and now I'm not really sure which is the correct one. So let's just, let's go with this one, I guess. Can you see this one I'm scrolling right now?
Just the top.
No,
Just the
yeah.
top.
Okay. Let me try to look at these two and see why I have two versions. I thought I had formatted it differently and it's not. Enforcement order requirements. I had findings. Oh, they're both the same. Let me look one more time. Where it might be, it's not there. Draft. Oh, here's another version. Oh, it's just getting worse. All right, let's just, we're just gonna have to work our way through this. Unfortunately, I had a newer version of this that sort of disappeared on me. I'm gonna look one more place. All right. Hang on. I've got to close one of these documents so that we're not getting so many things open. All right, I'm going to screen share it again and hopefully get it right this time. All right, does everyone see this?
Yep.
Okay. This enforcement order is issued under the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Shutesbury General Protection Bylaw. The Shutesbury Conservation Commission shall not require restoration of the site of the demolished garage, as restoration does not serve the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Shutesbury General Bylaw. The bylaw treats the 100-foot buffer zone of jurisdictional wetlands as a protected resource area. The landowner shall allow the Concom or its agent to do site visits. Then the next language is the landowner shall cease and desist from any further ground disturbance or activities. And then 6, the landowner shall submit to the SCC a wetland delineation site plan for the entire property prepared by a qualified wetlands professional. Wetland boundaries and buffer zones shall be identified on the site plan and flagged on the site. Delineation shall be conducted based on assessment of vegetation and hydrology as exhibited by soils per CMR 10.55. Is that correct? Is that the right reference?
I think so.
Okay. This delineation and supporting data shall be reviewed by the commission and shall be subject to the SCC approval. The reason why I'm adding that is that if there's any question about that delineation, if we're not comfortable with it, then we might go back to the town and have a conversation about that. The delineation will be submitted no later than the end of business on Thursday, September 1st, 2022, which would give us a week to look at it before our next site visit, our first September meeting. I had a conversation with Marianne Antonellis, who said that she was expecting the delineation by the end of August. So I'm hoping that that date will be workable for them. I could give a later date if you want to give them a little bit more leeway.
I'm wondering about the drought situation right now and doing delineations.
Well, that's where I think that we need to review what they submit.
Yeah.
I also, there were some emails that we received with people requesting that we get a third-party reviewer to review the delineations. And I did, talk to some people about what our jurisdiction for that is. If there is an application before us, whether it's an RDA or a notice of intent, we can use the 53G statute to hire a third-party reviewer. If there is no application before us and it's an enforcement order, we can still get a third-party reviewer and use our own funds to pay for that review. But I think we kind of need to not get ahead of our skis and see if we're comfortable with the delineation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's see what the delineation says, and if we think we need to relook at some things, relook at it in the spring.
Yeah, or what we could do is hire a reviewer to go out, and if we have questions about the soil testing, for example, we don't have to go out ourselves and personally do all the soil borings. We can hire a third-party reviewer to go out and see whether they agree, and we could consider hiring Emily Stockman for that, possibly might be a good choice. But that we can postpone that for a later date. Is this date seem okay, or do you think we should give them a little bit more time? I feel like, we kind of want to move this along, especially if we think in the fall, we're going to want to go out and review this.
I'm okay with the date.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. Because you said Marianne was working on it, right? So,
The delineation work was done. Now they're waiting for the report.
yeah.
Okay. The SEC shall conduct a site visit once the landowners inform it that the flagging is in place. The results of this delineation will be reviewed at the Thursday, September 8th, 2022 meeting of the CONCOM. And then here's where it gets a little bit more tricky. No further work on the property, including any further assessments for the 21E reporting to the DEP, Massachusetts, shall be permitted until the SEC determines or approves the boundaries of protected resources, or until the SEC approves the wetland delineation. How do we want to do that?
You're saying until the SCC approves the boundaries of the resource areas in the wetland delineation.
Okay. And then I don't know if we really want to get into this, that site assessments are not exempt. I feel like this is not, we don't need to get into this.
No.
We just made, this is all we need to say. And then the SEC reserves the right to require that the landowners submit a request for determination of applicability for future work. And then pending our acceptance of a wetland delineation, no mowing or vegetation removal shall be permitted in any areas protected by the act or the bylaw without prior approval.
Sorry.
So this is where go ahead.
Number 9, you may want to say request for determination of applicability or notice of intent.
Okay. And then this was about the mowing. Do we want to say that future mowing in a protected resource area must be reviewed under a notice of intent? We could just say that.
Yeah.
So get rid of all the highlighted stuff.
I thought it looked okay.
Who said that?
Me.
Oh, it looks okay the way it is, or take it out.
So I'm sorry to butt in. This is Penny. You've never required mowing in a protected area to be done under a notice of intent before. That seems onerous to me. It's all It's done several places in town in sort of agricultural areas. Just with a letter of understanding with the commission. Maybe you want to do it with an RDA, but a notice of intent seems extreme here.
Well, if it's done in an agricultural area, then it's exempt from the Wetlands Protection Act under the agricultural exemption.
Only if the facility has an agricultural exemption, and I don't think any farms in town do.
You could change it to must be reviewed under an application with the Conservation Commission. Just, that leaves it open to being either an RDA or a notice of intent. But it has to be reviewed by the commission under some sort of application.
I like that.
Okay, must be reviewed under an application before. Is that right? I'll change the color here. And then I want to just say here about the floor drain that we defer to DEP on this. That while theoretically you could say that there could be a discharge of pollutants from the removal of the floor drain, we don't have any evidence that that's happened. And so I don't think we can include that. And so I'm just basically saying that this is not something that we're passing any judgment on.
I think that's good to put in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Just because it's been alleged, I want to make it clear that we're not making that judgment at this point. Okay, and then the SCC requests that the landowners continue sharing any relevant information with SCC regarding this property as it becomes available, or as the information becomes available. And as it relates to our jurisdiction.
Yep.
Is that okay? Requests or required?
Require.
Okay. All right, so that's the story. Any other comments before we decide what we're gonna do here?
I think that covers everything.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay. Again, not a pleasant place to be, and we don't mean to be, I want to make clear that this is not retaliatory. We're not trying to be punitive. We're trying to be constructive and proactive here and find a path forward to a good resolution. That's our goal. So that's really the focus here. I think we all agree on that. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion? And if it's so approved, give me permission to sign digitally.
I make a motion to issue the enforcement order for lot 032 as written, and give the chair of the commission the permission to sign for me.
Seconded.
Second, is Mary seconded? Okay,
Yep,
David,
second. Aye.
DeFont, aye. Harrington,
Aye.
and Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. All right, moving on. I think we're almost done. I don't think we have a whole lot. Let me find my agenda. I think I closed it because there were so many things open. So one of the issues that came up recently was that I noticed that there was a memorandum of understanding that the Concom had developed with LWAC and the dam keeper that was part of the order of conditions that was issued in 2018 for the seasonal lowering of the lake. That was a permit that was issued in 2018, and it was a 5-year permit. So it expires in November of 2023. And in researching this with Mark Rivers, found out that LWAC had signed the memorandum, but the Conservation Commission never signed it. So I think I sent the memorandum to everybody. Did everybody
Yes.
get a chance to look at it?
Yeah.
And so what would like to do is get it signed so we can just make sure that we've done our piece of it. Yes, Penny,
It was signed by the commission.
it was.
Maybe you don't have a copy with it signed, but there,
Okay.
I signed it when I was chair.
Okay, Mark's did not have a copy and I couldn't find a copy. Carrie, you have your hand raised?
I also could not find a copy and I contacted Linda and she could not provide me a copy or tell me any kind of direction of where it would be.
Yeah.
Last-
Okay.
I'm happy to come in and look for that, but I worked very closely with Mark and our dam keeper on that.
Yeah.
And I know we signed it in the context of a meeting.
Okay. Mark, you didn't get it though, right? You don't have it.
I don't have a copy of with everyone's signature on it.
Okay. So I think we can look for it, but I think, it's easy enough to sign it and then just move on. We're not gonna, I don't think we are interested in renegotiating it at this point.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's great. Go ahead and sign it. Can I just make a request of Mark since he's here and he and I both worked on that MOU. Mark, one of the conditions in the MOU, or I guess conditions, was that the dam keeper would notify the commission when the drawdown and the refill started. And I don't believe that's ever happened. What would be the best way to assure that that happens in the future?
I talked to Howard about it and he just wants a contact name and a telephone number to call and he'd be
Okay.
happy to. And then I'll ask him to also include me on to call, let me know that's actually happening.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank
Howard's
you.
not very computer literate.
Yeah,
and,
I know. I remember
so-
that.
he did call me last week and I had some things going on and didn't get a chance to return the call. So he has my number. And so he can reach out to me as well.
So do you want him to give you a call again? Or are you going to contact him?
I'll call him back. I have his number. He called me.
Okay.
his number. There was a complaint that the commission received from some residents in Leverett and apparently also some members of the Leverett Conservation Commission about the level of the dam release currently, because the Sawmill River is quite dry right now and people are concerned about habitat and wildlife being affected. And Mark did reach out to Howard and sent me an email summarizing it briefly that right now they're required to at any time release at least 50% of the input at the dam that's input into the lake, and they're releasing more than 100%. And that the hold on a second, Carrie's calling me. Hi, Carrie. Yes. No, we're all in the meeting. Are you guys in the meeting still? Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
we're in the
Yep.
meeting. Can you get back in? I don't know, my co-host. Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, she's gonna try to get back in. She might boot us all out. If she boots us all out, then come back. Anyway, what he said was that they were slowly lowering the lake and that there was, it was releasing. I shared that information to the people who are concerned. Their feedback was that it looked very full down by the dam because it's spilling over the spillway. But that doesn't mean that it isn't low in some other areas. It could be low in other areas that are more upland. So I don't know that there's a resolution to any of this. I mean, we need rain and, releasing more water would be affecting the habitat on the lake. So it'd be,
Right.
stealing from Peter to pay Paul. So I don't know that there's a resolution to that unless people have some thoughts about it. Nope.
Pray for rain.
Okay, pray for rain. We have, moving on, I think they were almost done. We have, what?
It's Mark here. Quick question. To renew the notice of intent.
Yes.
We're a year away from that, but it's just, I can kind of understand what I need to do or what the town needs to do to, to keep it going, I guess is my question.
So, there was this wonderful wildlife habitat assessment that was submitted, and there were some recommendations in that assessment. And I think what happens if you want to extend the order of conditions, you request an extension. I believe we probably have to do a public hearing. Is that right? For an extension? I would think we have to do a public hearing.
Yeah.
And so it has to be a butter notifications and a legal ad, almost as if you're doing a notice of intent. And I would say at that point, we would look at the order of conditions, and if there was any alterations we wanted to make, we could probably amend them. I know there were some recommendations that Emily Stockman made in her report that were made after the OOC was issued. I don't know if we would want to consider any of them. I guess that, we're not there yet. I don't think we would require another wildlife habitat assessment at this point, Mark. That was the question. I know that was a question I had about what the language in the order of conditions made it sound like the commission was holding open this possibility for a future reassessment, but I think that probably we wouldn't be requiring that at this point right now.
Is there a form or something that needs to be filled out to request an extension to an NOI?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, there's.
Is there an extension form? It's a DEP form?
Yep.
Okay, that is, we haven't fielded one. So I know it's not an amended OOC request, right?
Right, no, it's different. It's called an extension. And it's not a very complicated form.
Okay. Yeah, we can get that to you, Mark. And
that'd be great.
And am I correct that the order of conditions could be revised or updated if necessary at that point? Or is an extension mean that you're just extending the existing order?
I believe it's just extending the existing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, you can put in that request, Mark.
All right, great. This is like all new to me also, so I'm just looking for guidance.
Yeah, I think in the meantime, maybe you could also look at that wildlife assessment, and the commission could look at it and see whether the town, LWAC, would like to request, and if there are any conditions that we think we would like to see added to the order, whether maybe an amended order of conditions request would make sense so that we could update the order.
Okay.
Because I know the memorandum of understanding was kind of developed after that order was issued. We might want to incorporate some components of the MOU into the order. Might be worth looking at.
That's fine. I'll, again, just looking for what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think we can figure all that out. Great. We have 2 site visits that I need to schedule for this Sunday. One of them is for Mr. Avanti at 17 Cove Road, who is has a small building permit application in the buffer zone. And then the Round Hill subdivision people, the Capellis, want to get the certificate of compliance for that 1987 order of conditions that I sent out to everybody. So what that means is going and walking with the site map down Round Hills Road and look at what it looks like, and then decide how we're going to issue a certificate of compliance.
I can't do site visits this Sunday.
Okay. Who can do them?
Sorry.
Anybody else?
I might be able to do them, but it would have to be in the morning, not the afternoon.
Well, we could, since our next meeting's on the 25th, we could do it on the 21st. Beth, are you free on the 21st?
I think so. I can tentatively say yes.
Tentatively the 21st, does that
Yeah,
sound
I
okay?
can
for
do
you?
that too, so. I
Okay.
could do either date, so.
All right, let's shoot for the 21st, and I'll loop back with those people. It won't make a difference if we do it next week or this week or next week, because we still have to review
Okay.
the meeting. Okay, that's good. The other thing is I got an email from Mr. Mitchell at 678 Pratt Corner Road that he is ready to start excavating and wanted to know if we wanted to look at his erosion controls and or be present when the excavation work begins. Do we want to look at the erosion controls?
Was that one of the ones where we actually said that they could just send pictures? I know we've been putting that into our conditions that they could.
No, not that. This was the enforcement order. No. What it just said is that he would give us 7 days notice before they began excavation in case we wanted to observe the excavation work, but we also are requiring Mickey Marcus to provide weekly monitoring reports. So the monitoring reports should include photographs, and I would think that that would suffice. I don't think we need to be there.
Yeah.
No, I feel like I need to be observing the excavation.
Yeah, I don't think we need to see the excavation, but maybe we do take a quick look at the erosion control.
Okay.
Make sure it's in the right spot.
All
And,
right.
that's even just like somebody running by in the afternoon to do it. Like I could stop there on my way home from work one day once the erosion control's up.
Okay, I will email him and let you know that what day he can do that.
Okay.
That'd be good. All right. That sounds good. All right. And I think that's all we've got for tonight.
So I just have one request to follow up. When we
Yes.
were out the other day, the suggestion was made that we ask the Lake Wyola Association to provide us with a copy of their road repair plan and their schedule. So that we could take a look at that along with everything else we're doing with this. So I would just I would just recommend that we send a
Is
letter.
that, do they have such a thing?
They said they did. When we were on the site visit the other day, they said they have a plan. So it would be nice to see what their
They
plan
have
is.
to, they don't have to share it with us if they don't want to, right? I mean, it's a private road unless they have an application before us.
Well, I think they do have to share it since the road, we're talking about the road, the wetlands and the culverts and all their road repairs that they've been doing. You
Yeah,
know,
Janice, you've got your hand raised?
Yes, but it's not about this, so finish what you're doing there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we'd want to see it if they're going to remove that drain, they need to apply for a permit with us to remove the drain, right?
well, I think that we should ask for both the road reply and what their response to removing the culvert would be. Or to come and give us what their plan is.
Okay. How
They're
about,
never here when we discuss it, so they should be if we're gonna.
should we request that they come to the public hearing for Bob Douglas?
I do think somebody should be here for the hearing, since that's, the plan is for them to
Yeah.
take that back out,
Yeah. Okay, well, I can send them an email if I have permission of the commission to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Everybody's agreeing. Janice, what's your comment?
One of the things on the agenda was just the bylaw regulations consultation. I was just wondering if there was any
yeah.
update on that
There
or
is an
not.
update. There
Oh,
absolutely
good.
is an update. So I had a very and it involves you, Janice.
Oh.
So I reached out to Patrick Garner. He said that he and Scott Horsley are working on a draft of some regulatory language. And there are some questions that he raised that he wants us to think about. And so we're talking about, he and I were getting into a conversation about intermittent streams. And there is some methodology for how you can tell that an intermittent stream has gone underground using tracer dye methodology. But one of the problems is that if a stream goes underground for a long time, It can meander. It may not be linear. It might go very deep. It might be shallow. It might be very wide. You don't really know the characteristics of the stream. And it might be very hard to assess. And so he wanted us to think about how we might want to, for example, set limits on what needs to be delineated. For example, if you were to say 200 feet, if an underground stream goes underground for 200 feet, that needs to be delineated. That doesn't necessarily get you a lot because there's a 100-foot buffer around the intermittent stream. So you're already getting the 100 feet from both ends. So you're not getting any extra layer of protection. But if you go to 500 feet, it might be too long a distance and it might end up extending off of the property and then not be something that could be delineated, because if an abutter doesn't give consent for you to go and delineate on their property, then it might not be discoverable. So there's kind of like a balancing act around that. And then the question of like, how deep do we want to regulate a stream? And, how deep, for example, if there's an intermittent stream and somebody wants to put an access road through the area where it's underground, if they have to excavate 4 feet, that could damage an intermittent stream unless the intermittent stream was maybe more than 6 feet deep. So having some sort of depth requirement might be necessary. And these are just things he wants me to share with you to think about. And then, seasonally, what time of year could you delineate an intermittent stream? That there might be only seasonal periods when intermittent streams can be delineated. For example, probably can't be delineated in the winter, probably can't be delineated during drought periods. So there may be just windows of opportunity when, that kind of analysis could be done. And we might need to spell it out in our regulations. But the other thing that, and this is not about identifying underground what's going on, but if they give us some regulatory language to protect intermittent streams, they might help us in situations where you've got an intermittent stream that's kind of coming to surface and then going underground and coming to surface. And when it's above surface, it looks like an isolated wetland and doesn't get captured by our local bylaw requirements for an isolated wetland. So if we came up with a definition for an intermittent stream that might add a level of protection above and beyond what's already there for isolated wetlands and BVW, maybe that would be worthwhile. So his suggestion.
So
What?
could you send that to us in an email? Mostly because, mostly because I think Scott was really interested in, he's not here today, with the internet stream and all of that with following it.
Well,
So
I can try. It was a lot. I just was taking notes feverishly while he was talking. But so his suggestion was that maybe we set up a Zoom call with him, Scott, me, and he was suggesting Janice. But it could be all of us. We could do it as a posted meeting, just to knock some of these ideas around and having like a work meeting.
I
So
think it'd be good to have everybody.
okay.
If you guys are going to have to enforce it, so you ought to understand what the possibilities are and what you feel is possible.
So I've invited them to come to our meeting on August 25th at 7:00. They're at the top of the agenda. So they're already on the agenda, so we can plan on that discussion happening then.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. It's interesting. It's all very interesting. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate because of the drought, we can't go out and do some site visits and look at some streams as he was suggesting, because it's the wrong time.
Yeah, but good that Scott had done that video. I think that was really
Yeah, no, it was really good. It was really good. And I don't, this is going to be complicated. I don't know what we'll be able to come up with, but sounds like maybe there'll be something we can use.
And you'll have to make sure everyone understands what you're suggesting, and then you're going to have a public hearing or at least a public meeting. On regulations, I guess it's public meeting, but make sure it's well advertised because you're probably going to get a lot of questions. And maybe some of them will help to define what the Concom should try to do or not,
Yeah.
just scenarios.
Yeah, I think we'll have to get the draft language and put it up on our
Yeah.
website, and then we will have to advertise it.
Yeah,
I thought it had to be a public hearing, actually.
not for regulations, just for bylaw. So it depends on which one is going into it.
Okay, so yeah, this would be just for regulation. So a public
Yeah.
meeting, and then get public comment, and then we would then
Yeah,
approve them, would promulgate them.
good.
So I'm not sure you were saying you wanted to have the public meeting just for the purpose of this discussion to start with, or after we have something more
After.
put together. Yeah, because I was gonna say it could get very confusing if we were trying to talk to them and have a bunch of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that the meeting on the 25th was going to be the public meeting,
No.
because we didn't have a draft yet.
Okay, yeah,
Was-
that's.
we- I think what he was hoping was to have a smaller group to have kind of, to sound some things around,
Mhm.
Yeah.
bounce some ideas around. So I don't know. I mean, would a couple of, like Beth and Janice, would you like to do that? Have a meeting with them? I don't have to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think it's good to have the whole committee involved.
Yeah.
Actually, I won't be here on the 25th.
Oh, that's right.
So, but that's okay because I feel like it's sort of the beginning of the process.
Yeah.
So have him come to the meeting. You guys bounce stuff around. I'll catch up at the next meeting. It's fine.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And I don't have anything else, and it's only 9:15. This was a very short meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to 9:13, we are adjourning. I second that. David.
Aye.
Stefan, aye. Harrington.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
I know,
Okay, good.
before somebody thinks of something else, it's like,
Yeah, please.
yay.
Oh, thank you. Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Miriam.